So it's obvious that the internet completely broke and reformed business as we know it and the idea of value creation. Because before, value creation was tied to like hand to hand. You kind of like, you had to create value, but not only that, but you had to also be in a scenario where that value could be perceived and like sold. You know, you could exchange it. And then the internet was like, basically like, if you could provide like whatever value you could provide, you can connect it to people who want that thing of value, and will compensate you for it. So your ability to value create essentially became way more diversified and way more easily accessible for regular people. However, you still needed to have an internet connection and know how to use the internet and really kind of understand the basic fundamentals of value creation, because that's a complicated concept. But the idea of like selling a sweater, that's pretty straightforward. And that was actually one of the first ways that millionaires, I think, were created. Or I mean, obviously, on the internet, I mean in particular, not generally. But I mean, I'm specifically thinking of Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Workweek. He kicked off a generation of people who were like, wait, oh my God, you can see something that someone wants to buy. You can allow more people to buy it, be the person who provides that, and then just like take a percentage of it. Like you can just be in the business of finding people who would pay $20 for a sweater, finding someone who will sell you a $10 sweater. And because of the internet, that became super accessible. However, that still required a brain. That required a vague idea of of value creation and some giddy up. You know, you had to go make a website to offer the product. You had to market the product, find a way to get that website in front of people's eyes, or in front of magazines like that. The 4-Hour Workweek in particular, Tim Ferriss' book, was years ago, over 10 years ago now. So, you know, the techniques were different. So, but the case I want to make now is, well, I'll wrap that up, because what eventually happened is that, and something Tim Ferriss was involved with, was Shopify, which took sort of the last layer of like what you had to figure out on your own. It took that and kind of just abstracted it away. So now you have people who really, you know, you don't have to try very hard at all. You could start a website that takes a payment, and in exchange for an item or a service. You can do that in 24 hours. And I would argue, if you really know what you're doing today, you could do that in like 2 to 4 hours. Have a pretty decent website that offers a product. Like, that's not hard. And the modern tools did that. However, now, that's a generator. Hope that's not too loud. However, with, you know, as business works, now everyone has a store and everyone's offering a product, and it's not as straightforward anymore to do that, just because, you know, and again, I'm not saying the window's closed. You could still probably start a store. Again, it's the base, because at that point, it's still the basic principles of buying and selling, like an online store. That's never gonna go away. It's just like, it's not as dummy straightforward. And this goes for dropshipping as well. In the same way that Shopify changed e-commerce, Alibaba did a similar thing in just terms of like product and manufacturing, because now anyone could invent and sell a product. You could either take something that they're already mass producing for cents, 10, 20 cents a piece. You could take that and make it your own, or send them a thing and be like, hey, can you make decentralized manufacturing? So now, literally anyone with no expertise or no previous connections in the field, in less than, a few days, could have all the pieces in place. Obviously, like back and forth thing with China for manufacturing, it takes time. But for no upstart cost whatsoever, and just a few days of your time, you could start, insert product here. Like any number of these, I used to work with a lot of like e-commerce companies like Native or Dr. Squatch, Mudwater. These are all great examples of like, hey, here's a thing. Let me find out how to do this thing really cheap and just get it in front of people. That obviously was the boom, is still the boom, but it's so easy now to start a company that things are slightly changing. Now the case that I'm making, hopefully this isn't, 100 minutes long, feels like it already, but the case that I'm making is that I think that boom is happening right now for software. I don't know how long it's going to last. But in the same way that Alibaba and Shopify showed up, changed e-commerce entirely, so much so that like the landscape itself kind of had to evolve to compensate for how easy it is to get started now. I think the exact same thing is happening in software. I don't know how long it's going to last, but definitely for the next couple years, people who are taking advantage of how easy it is to get to bootstrap a web app or any kind of software from the bottom up, to build a fully functional piece of software, that is so easy now, that before everybody catches on, you could make the next, like all these brands. Like I'm gonna go back to e-commerce for the easy comparison because I understand it the best or better. I have worked with all these, like a lot of these companies that started genuinely from nothing, a Shopify store. And like they're recognizable, they're in stores, but the goal was always to just rapidly spin up an e-commerce platform. And they did that, and then it grows out of control. But like the point is that you don't know what works until you do it. And so it's not how many great ideas can I have in a lifetime and how well can I pursue those ideas. If you're a real, that's a hair. That's a small hair. If you got the grind set, I hate to say, but like, if you're a real business, if you're serious about, is this still recording? Lovely. If you are serious about making a lot of money quickly, essentially like the gold rush. I mean, that has a negative connotation, because we think of most of the people who participated in like the gold rush were suckers who just showed up late. And that is true, but that's not true for the thousands and thousands of people who were there when the door opened. This is true for crypto. Like nowadays, Crypto Bros is a bit, but you realize that's a bit because there are genuine multimillionaires who did nothing but just show up at the right time. Like it's a bit, and there are people who lost thousands when they showed up too late. And this isn't to say that crypto is defunct, and I'm not. Ignore that. That's its own thing. Because I do think it's very, very real. But and this I'm saying this is a great example. Or not a similar story in that it's gonna crash. There's, oh my God, actually, if there is what looks like an AI crash, I'm sorry, a software crash. If that's what it looks like is happening, then all the more reason to jump in now. In the same way that like VR looked like it crashed. If you're developing a VR app right now, you're gonna be doing great in 5 years. And so I'll wrap this up by saying the same goes for general software. The reason I'm making this video is I just in a single prompt was able to the new Claude 3.5. In a single prompt, I was able to get full user authentication and session management using Google Cloud, Firebase, like simple stuff relatively, but it's done and deployed now, and I never have to do that again, and I can just like copy paste that and route it to all my services. Yes, the point I'm making is like that was unreasonably easy, and I think a lot of people have ideas for websites, for softwares, but softwares. Basically, I'll loop back to e-commerce. Like everybody needs soap, and there's a bunch of people making soap, but some companies just put it in cardboard and say it's renewable, or it's renewable, biodegradable packaging. Okay, now you're different. It's soap, but it's different. Now it's like we use natural ingredients. Okay, it's more soap, but it's different. Every single one of those people are multimillionaires. Every single one of those people can do whatever they want. The point that I'm making isn't, I don't know. The point that I'm making is that like you don't have to be different. You don't have to be new. You just have to give the value to the people who want it. And just because something exists doesn't mean your version can't exist. And I think in the same way that e-commerce exploded and we have 1 billion different versions of, like, you can go online now, it's crazy. And there's just like 1 billion fully fleshed out companies you've never heard of that sell maybe 1 or 2 products, like a castor oil cleanse or, a towel, like anything. Just like people who start brands to just ship TikTok shop products. You can do that. You don't have to be new and different. Those people are making money just because they did the hard thing, which isn't hard anymore. Starting an online shop. Not again, hard meaning you have to solve your own problems. It's time, sure. It's a few days of, clicking the right buttons, but it's not hard like it was. And the case I'm making is that software is the exact same way, and if you're paying attention and you want to make money and you want to start making your own decisions in life, not just being steered by, the boats of getting by. Steered by the boats? I mean, steered by the winds of the economic system. If you would like to get on top of the middle class, and then have the option to either live a happy life or double down and, make multi-generation life-changing money, you can do that. But that option becomes available to you when you're up here at the top of the middle class, and that happens when you basically find a way to automate value creation. And in the case thus far, it's been start a product, start a website, make a product, make it so that people can give you money for the thing you did years ago or months ago, which was set up the website, enable this process to take place, and then automate everything else. The same thing is happening for software, and there are so many people, myself included, who spent their whole life adjacent to be God, it would be so cool to just make something infinitely scalable that people would give you money to do. It'd be so cool, but anything but obviously making software, because that's you need a team, and you need to understand math, and you gotta learn how to code. You gotta have a brain. You gotta have the brain for it. Basically you can do anything, but not that. I always just not thatted. And there's no reason for that. Maybe it was harder. And that's what I'm saying now, is that anybody who thought about starting an online store before Shopify, they might have done it, but it was still hard. And then as soon as Shopify came out, it was you should have done it. You can still. It just became unreasonably easy to do. And so anybody who's vaguely interested in learning how to code, you should do it. Now. Right now. I don't know how long this window's gonna be open, but I can make a website in half an hour that can take a payment and can do a thing. Everybody know, and people know this. Not everybody knows this, but the people in the space, if you, I'm sure if you don't know me, sorry about this saw. If you don't know me and you've watched this whole video, you're probably very interested. And you're probably very knowledgeable of what's happening here. With the new AI coding tools, and we are, honestly, it feels like months away from a prompt to app. It's going to be shaky, it's going to be buggy, and because of that, not everybody's going to hop on board, and it might take a few months, maybe another year or two, to really stabilize this so that anybody can generate an app. But in those 2 years, anybody who vaguely understands coding is going to make life-changing money. Definitely. And again, maybe this window stays open forever, because the other thing is about learning how to code is it changes you for the better. So maybe hop on for the gold rush, well, it's easy to do, not too crowded. As if tech's not crowded. That's such a funny concept. But no, I mean not crowded as in the rapid ideation process. Yeah. Just the entrepreneur bro aspect of it isn't crowded yet. In the same way that a lot of those big e-commerce companies I was talking about, sometimes those guys had 5 brands, and then one of them started getting outsized returns, and then they doubled down. The same thing's happening in software. You could you don't have to dedicate your life. God, it's crazy. On Reddit, I'll come across people who are I've spent 5 years on my tech startup, and I'm trying to fundraise now. It's just how did you spend an hour on it a week? How actually can something take you that long? Because the modern tools we have, the tools in the same way that going back to that guy, anybody who was it took me 5 years for my online store. Anybody who knows what Shopify is and Alibaba, they're what? Genuinely, what? It just doesn't make sense anymore. The same thing is happening now. It's I know how to code. It's okay, cool. How many social media apps have you built? It's just 5 this week. You can just try shit out that fast, and that's where we're at. That's where we're going. So hop on, literally build a thing. today. I gotta get back to work.